Thank you. Okay, somebody's just trying to connect to audio, so they're just coming in, but it's taking a while. So we'll start. Time, and then gratitude for the knowledge and the practice. So one of the themes of this week is to be focused on some stuff, really some basic stuff, but really get a good focus on it. So let's start with the left foot forward. Remember that this stance that we start to warm up in, every time you do it, really be careful about this. Make sure you get doing it. Is that it's a long stance. It's quite a big step, right? Like quite a large step, and it also has the width of your shoulders or your hips between your feet. The too narrow is not good. You want the base to be very stable this way. So from that stance, left foot forward, we're going to start with going forward and back, because that's the main dynamic that we want to develop and move out from. So you get a center, and then from the center you like concentric circles, like a mandala. It goes out from that center. Now, connect to your breathing. Breathe in, breathe out. Make sure that you feel all the weight go from one foot to the other foot. And now, as we're doing that, also be aware, pay attention to the surface of the bottom of your foot. Because in order to bring the weight back to the back foot and forward to the front foot, very subtle pressure changes have to happen across the surface of the foot. And that's what pushes and pulls your mass, your body weight, from one place to another. That should be felt somewhat like a wave, right? The wave comes back and forward. And that wave has 2 points of contact, so to speak. Back through the heel on the back foot, and then forward through what I often call kidney 1 on the front of the foot, just past behind the pad of the toes on the front of the foot. And that, well, you can think of it kind of like a little self-reflexology treatment. You're giving yourself a little foot massage by pushing and pulling through your feet very mindfully. I was saying to the class I was teaching just before this one, after many, many years of studying martial arts and Qigong and Tai Chi, there's not that many stances. I could teach somebody all the stances in martial arts in about half an hour, but mastery of those stances and the way that your lower body moves you around, that's a lifetime. There's so subtle nuance. Now I'm going to go forward, and as I push back, I'm going to bring myself to the side, and then I'm going to come back to the front. Now all of that is further dynamic, nuanced control of the pressure through the bottom of the foot. Now that's what we want to focus on, is the awareness of that. Now, that sets the lower body into gear. And from the lower body, we want to extend that movement up into the upper body. And of course, your hips, or your dantian, is the connection between those 2 points, or those 2 areas, I guess you could say. So the first connection is, once we get to our hips in the movement, is to the shoulder. So my right foot is behind me. My right shoulder is going to come forward and back, and I'm going to be very, very mindful of it being connected to my lower body. So as I come back and as I come forward, I'm feeling a connection. I'm developing the sense of that connection in my mind and in my body, literally. And it's always connected to breathing. Breathing in, and breathing out. Breathing in, and breathing out. Now, before we add the elbow into the mix, try to think about the 3-dimensional dynamic of your torso. We put our hands in the front of our bodies, and that is important for bringing the awareness to that area, as well as that's just where your body allows your hands to comfortably be. But that doesn't mean you forget about the back and the other sides of the sphere, so to speak. If you think of this as a sphere. And so when you're doing this, particularly think about what's called the lateral muscles, the lat muscles that connect from the back of the shoulders into the lower back up here. So as I come back, I'm being aware of this strap of muscle here. And then I'm pushing through it here. And that is very important for a lot of movements. So if you can have some sense of that, we can then start with the hand. The hand comes up and the hand comes back. And the connection is through the lat muscles, and the legs here, and then out. And we're really just thinking of the elbow more or less right now, but obviously the hand is going to come into play in a moment. So think about your back muscles. Now, the hand is going to simply reach and extend, and then come back, palm up. It's only an outcome, or an outgrowth, or an emergence of all the other stuff we just talked about. Moving from the feet to the hips, moving from the hips to the shoulders, and then to the hand. But put your awareness here, these muscles, as you come back, and as you go. And now we're going to do this as our warm-up. So just breathe and just develop it, whatever you can get from it, as much awareness as you can. Now, a little bit more powerful breathing and hold the exhalations. Remember, it's the minute changes on the pressure of your foot that moves your body. Feel the pressure on the foot change. Maximize, and then rescind. One more. And feet together. Cleansing breath to the ground. Breathe in. Breathe out. Down. Up. And up. Shake it out. Put your right foot forward. We'll do the process again, but I don't have to explain everything this time. So, forward and back. But always, always, always directing your mind to the fundamental elements of the movement, to the feet, to the hips, to the legs, getting the lower body to become so good at how it moves you around that you would later on not have to think about it. But right now, you want to hyper focus on it so that it becomes as efficient as it can be. I sometimes kind of smile. As in days past when I was having classes, people would come into Tai Chi classes and hear that I teach martial applications of Tai Chi, be all excited about that. And I'd start a class like this, and they'd be like, I don't want to learn that. That looks boring. And it's like, no. This is the thing you want to learn. Because how much movement the range of movement you have in one stance is the thing that's going to determine the outcome. Your ability to move in one position is so important. And this is the fundamental movement, forward and back. Reptiles, fish, these kinds of animals basically can only move forward. Sometimes laterally a little bit, but they definitely don't go backwards. It's the fundamental movement of life, it's forward and back. Then being human, we have a very good, very, very heightened ability of dynamical movement. So we start going inside. We can think in multiple dimensions, we can think in multiple directions in a way that's very unique. But you do see a correlate to this in the animal kingdom with, as I said, sharks and fish can only really swim forward for the most part. There's some fish that do some interesting things, but most of the time it's that way. But sharks in particular have absolutely zero chance against dolphins, because dolphins can swim in any direction at any time. And that is the advantage of their brains, basically. They're much more developed spatial awareness. And so this is what this is developing in you, in what we're doing. So the connection is from the foot to the hip and then to the shoulder. And as I said, we're going to go a little faster to the movement, this one, because we've already talked about all this. The shoulder only really works if you can connect the muscles of the back as well as the front. So the lat muscles, as I said, are super critical here. And you want to feel the dynamic of that strength in the entire movement. So going back and going forward. And then from there, the hand frees up. You can start to feel the push and pull between the arm and the body. And then maximize the arm's movement by extension forward and retraction completely back. And when I do this, of course, my elbow is staying close, it's not flaring out, so that the arm is moving largely in a straight line. And then just relax and just do this, paying as much attention to the details as you can, the breathing, the weight on the feet, all of it. Letting your mind map it out, letting your mind develop the understanding that the movement is teaching. And of course, that is a relaxed state, no tension. Focus, just feel, be aware. Put a little more power into your breathing so that you're very, very distinctly connecting breathing to movement. And now start to hold the exhalation for a moment each time. Breathe together. One more cleansing breath. Breathe in. And breathe out. Down. Up. Open. And push back. Shake down. Okay, so yeah, so that was definitely a warm-up where we did one thing, right? We just did it on both sides. And that's been a theme of the week. And I just want to mention why I do that sometimes. I don't do it that often, but I do bring this up once in a while. The mind has a tendency to be able to calm down, and tension in the body also has a tendency to calm down. If you give yourself a single task to just repeat for a while, because you can let go of the necessity of cognition to do it. You can just start to do it without having to think. And that allows the stressors, whether the tension in the mind, tension in the body, you can put more awareness on them and let them go through that practice. Whereas if we do a warm-up where we do 5 different things, your mind has to continually go, oh, we're doing something else, what are we doing? And pay attention to that, and then do something else, which is also valuable. So they're both valuable, but it's just good to know that once in a while, especially if you feel like your frustration, because frustration is a sign that there's a stagnation in your energy. Do one movement. This is one movement, this is one movement, whatever it is, and do it like 25, 30, 40, 50 times. And by the end of that, you'll usually find that you calm right down. So the one thing exercise is a useful one. So let's have a stretch. Sink down. Side to side. You turn your feet forward, sink down, knees out. And then fingertips to the floor, sink down even more. Straighten your back. Turn to your left. And push to the left. This is another good example of how you can hone in on that way that your weight is put onto your feet. So make sure they would say pouring water, which is the weight is being pushed into the left foot, into the front of the left foot, where kidney 1 is. You can lean forward, and that just accentuates that idea, right? The idea that you're putting more weight to that point. And then from there, this foot doesn't really change. The back foot heel comes up, and then sink down. And then put your back knee down and push your weight forward against your left foot. And then walk your hands back to your right foot. Put the left foot in the air, sink down. Put your hands on the floor. The middle, straighten up. And we'll do the other side, of course. So to the right, push. Think about where the weight's going into the foot, and push forward. Bring your head forward, stretch. And then put your hand down for support, heel up, and runner's stretch. Put your back knee down, push your weight forward, stretch. And then back to the middle. Straighten up. And then we're just gonna do a little bit of Tai Chi stretch to each side real quick. First, bring your hands up here. Hold the ball essentially. Weight goes to the right foot. Oops. I'm gonna show you my feet. So I'm here, and my weight goes to my right foot, and I sink down, and then I come up and I sink to my left. So just bounce a couple times back and forth. And then sink down on whatever side you want, and just hold that stretch. And then come up and sink down on the other side and hold that stretch. And put your hands on the floor. Work your feet in. Straighten the back of the knees. Breathe in. And breathe out. And circle your hips. And the other way. Good. Okay. Hands up. Palms down. Rotate the wrists forward. Now rotate the wrists and the elbows, but keep your elbows 90 degrees out from your shoulders. And then rotate your shoulders, the hands crossing above the head and down. And relax. There's no tension here. It's just throwing the arms in a circle. And then relax. Up, and palms backwards. And then at the elbows. Again, keeping the elbows out from the shoulders. And then circle. Big circles. Crossing as they come up. And then extend. Palms forward. Hands as far apart as they can. Fingertips as far apart as they can. And then one down, one up, and look. And then the other way, look. And then back and forth a couple times. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Stretch. And then drop your hands. Breathe in. And fall. 1, 2, and 3. And then reach up to the ceiling. Look up at your fingertips. Now stretch up as high as you can with your feet on the ground, but look up. And then when we go to our tippy toes, we're going to turn our palms to the outside. So ready? Tippy toes, palms to the outside. Push your thumbs up now. Focus on your thumbs. And then bring your heels down. Left hand grabs right hand. Twist the palm up. Pull it behind you to the corner and stretch your armpit, basically. Back to the center. Drop your hand to the center here. And then twist from your feet. And then back to the center. Drop your hands. And then reach up again. High as you can, feet are on the ground. And then when you go to your tippy toes, palms to the outside. Go. Push your thumbs up, thumbs. And bring your heels down. Grab your left hand with your right. Twist and pull over the head to the back corner. Back to the center. Drop your hand to the center of your body, and then turn. And then back to the front. Drop your arms, shrug your shoulders, shake it out a bit. Good. Left hand up, pull back. Make sure your arm's extended. It's not a good stretch. It's a stretch here, but it's not as good as this stretch. Full extension. Back, turn, and then full extension again. So there's definitely a push and pull here. I'm pulling with one hand, pushing with the other. And then bring the hand into the center and twist. When you do this, work on the strength of the thumb in the rotation. They always talk about holding a teacup. So it's not a teacup, but if I was holding a teacup and I had my thumb in the back there, that you're twisting the cup forward, you're strengthening that positioning of your thumb. So here, put the thumb right up in this area here behind the little knuckles, somewhere in there. It's up to you kind of how you want to do that, but then push that thumb around. Make that part of this process. Because now you're really doing the martial art technique called kotegaeshi, the wrist throw. It's also a pressure point called Sanjo 3, so you're doing a couple things. And then around to the front. Now this one, whenever you do crane beak or this one, the elbow being close to the ribs is very important. You don't do it out like this. You want it here, because what I'm going to do is simply put my fingers straight forward. And it's kind of like the crane's head. You can sort of see the idea of mimicking a crane in this shape. And then I take my middle finger of my other hand and I lay it across the knuckles of this hand. And then I'm pushing this hand down against the elbow. And this is why the elbow has to be in, so that when I push down against the elbow, the tendons up in here get pulled to a maximum. And I feel that between the elbow and the wrist, ultimately between the elbow, the wrist, and the shoulder, but at least between these two to start. So that's really important. And then we release the tension the tension. And I'm then going to push my fingers out to the side, so I have more of this posture. And then I push down again, and I just get it the same stretch, but a slightly different angle. And then shake it out. And then the same thing with the other arm. So here, pull back. In, over, and out. And then in and turn, and remember we're practicing using the strength of our thumb against the space below the two basic, the smaller knuckles here. And then to the front, middle finger across the knuckles and press. And then release the tension so that you can easily turn to the outside and then press down again. And then give it a shake. And just to make a connection about that for you guys, because we haven't been able to do any application really, in the first part of the Tai Chi form, come down and I pick up the thermos, right? The main application to that is what you're doing is grabbing the person's hand this way with one hand and then their elbow with the other hand. So they're in this position. This is the thermos, the wrist bent like this against the elbow. And when you do that, you can throw the person with that position, because as you can feel here, when you push down, if you push down a little more than it's comfortable, that is not a good feeling. Like you really get, there's a pain response, you would say. And so you can do it here, and this is what you're doing when you throw to the corner, using that to throw a person here. So it's it's good to remember that when you do these stretches, that there's application to them. Hopefully that was useful. Anyway, keep going, head side to side. And roll the chin one way, roll the chin the other way, and roll the chin one way, and then one more time the other way. And then look forward and look up. And look down. And go around. 1, 2, 3, other way. 1, 2, and 3. Okay. So, excuse me, but I got a drink. All right. I think I want to just draw a little bit more from that idea as a concept to introduce. People often misunderstand a lot of the techniques that you might find in Tai Chi because of the fact that they really do allow things that seem, in a sense, logically not to be possible. So a person who's 150, 140, 150 pounds, throwing a person who's 220 pounds. Well, how does that happen? Well, there's a couple main ways that happens. Balance is a big one, because and the mass of the other person, the weight of the other person used against them is another one. But this technique here, as a throw, which is part of the first part of the form, isn't based on that so much as it's based on something called, well, this is a term I think comes out of law enforcement, but it's the right term. It's called pain compliance techniques. And what that is what it sounds like. You create a surge of pain in the body somewhere, and it does not matter what the person thinks they want to do. Their instinctual mind, their more primitive part of the mind at the back of the head here, overrides all cognition, all thinking, and the response is instant and there's no control. You know this from that thing that people famously do at the doctor where they hit your knee and there's that unconscious response. That's what that is. It's a stimulation of nerves that goes to a part of the brain that's deeper and more primal than your normal day-to-day thinking. And so what you do, say with this one, is by a surge of shock and pain to that particular joint. Joints are a big part of this because they have a lot of nerve endings around them. The person will throw themselves backwards against their own best wishes, to the point that you could do that and they would throw themselves off a cliff, because their brain isn't thinking about the future, it's thinking about the moment it's in and getting away from that pain so dramatically that it'll literally do that. And that's part of what the Tai Chi is actually teaching, is this understanding of all of this. And so when you're doing this one now, as we practice the form, you can think that what I'm doing here is I'm sending a signal through a person's wrist to their brain to say, get away from me, and that person goes, yeah. And it really does work, I assure you. And I will gladly show you as soon as I can. Okay, so having said that, we've been working the second set through, but I'm going to start introducing the third set today. So let's go through the first set as a warm-up and then go from there. So from here, step out, look forward, and then breathe in and begin. Now think about what I was talking about here. You push the person's arm down. As they rise up, you bend the wrist in towards their elbow. You grab the wrist and elbow, and then you throw them by the pain through the wrist away. And then you continue with the rest. Oh, wait, before we start that, sorry. Any questions on the first set? I apologize, I wanted to ask that question. Anything in the first set? Everything's okay? Okay. I'm going to break up the second set into two parts. Basically, the part before cloud hands, the part after cloud hands. And so I'll check in at that point. So from here. Remember the variation, left hand is underneath right. Then as you turn your palm, the left hand goes on top of the right forearm. Then you do your circles. Round the back of your head and down. Together, turn, drop, open the right, counterclockwise. 1, 2, 3. Remember, this is diagonal, not to the front. It's across the room, across the room. Cloud hands. Remember, cloud hands is feet apart, cross, feet together, across. That's 1. Feet apart, across, feet together, across. 2. And then the third one, feet apart, across, feet together, across. But as the left hand comes to the center, pick it up, and then single whip to the side. And that, to me, is the first half of the second set. So let's check in. Everything okay about all that? Okay. The next section is the one that most people have, it's trickier. It's a very tricky section, especially in learning this dynamic. So give yourself lots of credit for just trying. I'm gonna do, yeah, okay, we'll go from here. So I'm here, my weight's forward, it continues forward and I reach out. Bring my right foot in and shift back. And don't go too far back, right? There's a tendency to do this, don't do that, just settle. And this is called cat stance, because like a cat, you're coiled like a spring, ready to unwind. And then you clear the space and strike. Big circle, little circle, pick up your foot, push away. Pick up your foot, palms up, and then from there, hold it for a second. From there, stepping down and pushing with your right foot all at once to the corner. Big circle, little circle, push, up. Now palms up. Now use the dynamic of the foot, the pressure on the pad of the foot to spin around. And then down, both hands push it down, push down the left foot. One hand, left hand only picks it up. Out. Foot comes in, hand stays out. Take a step and push. Brush the knee. Take another step and push. And then take another step, brush the knee, but as you do, point your fingers like a spear and then punch with your right, vertical punch. And then clear, and then hook punch. Turn 180 degrees, hand around the back of the head and down. Sequence, kick, and push, poke, punch as it always is. Now my weight has come forward, it's going to come back. Pulling back my left foot, the cat stance, coiling, feeling that ready to jump, ready to pounce feeling. Pick up your foot, palms push it away, pick it up, push it down, heel doesn't touch the ground, comes very close, toes up, and then foot back up, palms up to here, cross step, swing the hands down, swing the leg back, and then sway forward and double hook punch, left hand on top. Sway back, hands back to the hips. And what we're doing is we're doing a 180-degree turn, turn the foot in, pull back, and sway forward again to the corner, right hand on top this time. Take a step with your left foot to the side and push with both hands to the side. So your left foot's in front, double circle. Pick up your right foot. Kick out, up, toes up, heel down, don't touch the ground, come very close though. Back up, palms up, step across, swing the left foot back, hands by your side, sway into the corner again, equal height with both hands. Shift back to the left foot and turn, and then open your hands and push forward to the side. Big circle. This is a fast kick. You put the foot down, turn 180 degrees, basically, cat stance, pushing down, both hands down, right hand on top of left, and right foot forward, and then big circle. Pick up the right foot, kick it away, bring it back up, and bring it down. Don't touch the ground, come very close. Then the left hand comes up and protects the head, and then the right hand scoops, takes the right foot up, kick, and then sequence, as you know, push, poke, punch. Draw back, push away, turn to the front, carry the tiger to the mountain. Okay, so how about that part? Everybody okay? Okay is fine. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is how I actually always do this, is I teach the whole form as kind of fast as can reasonably be done, and then we spend the rest of our lives going back and taking more and more apart from it, because that's what it was designed to do. So that first run through though, if you feel like you're sprinting and you're like kind of not quite getting everything, that's okay. You have your whole life to go put the rest of it back together, and it's not going to happen. One of the elements of this painting that I want to point out sometimes is this is not a wave, this is not a Fuji. And when Fuji was seen as the epitome of mountains, it was the symbolic greatest mountain. In Japan, it is the biggest mountain, so that makes sense. And the analogy was that even if you climb to the top of Mount Fuji or any other great mountain, all you do in terms of practicing Tai Chi, all you ever do is get to the point you can see further, bigger mountains down the road. So when I say that, you learn the form, and then you spend the rest of your life going back and gathering information out of it. It really is how it goes. So the third set, I only want to introduce one new thing and a couple things you already know. So if we start from carrying the tiger to the mountain, the first thing we do is exactly the same as the second set, which is to fall back and catch a sparrow by the tail. So there's nothing new there. Okay, so that's fine. And then we're going to do single whip 45 degrees, as we've done already. So single whip 45 degrees. And then I'm here. Okay, so that's all stuff we know. Now, show you my feet, I think is probably best. I go here. So if I'm facing this way, and I've done the catch a sparrow and then single whip to diagonally here, my weight's on my left foot, and my body, my position is expanded across the room this way. Now, my next attacker is coming from my right side. So straight to the right side. And what they're going to do is, what you think about them doing is trying to attack this opening here. Because when I'm in this posture, this is open and this is very vulnerable to attack. It's called the floating ribs. On the right side, which is this hand, this is actually where the liver sits, and it's also very vulnerable to attack. So that's where the attack's coming. It's coming into that point. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop my right hand and clear across for a block this way. And as I do that, I'm going to shift my weight from my left to my right. Okay, so if I'm facing this way, and I do it towards the camera, it looks like this. See how my body gets out of the way here, but then my hand drops at the same time here. Okay, so I'm here, the attack is coming in this way, and I'm clearing it like that. Now, you'll notice that when I'm here, and that happens, my left hand, if it stays out here, creates a big gap in this area, and my head's not being protected. So it's actually two motions. I'm going to protect from the strike because I have to, but I'm also going to bring my left hand across to here so that it's ready to protect my head. Okay, and that's an important habit because I always say to people, you know, people have two arms, and it's very unlikely somebody's going to be like this and then be like, oh, that didn't work, give up. It's very likely they're going to go one and then follow up with their other hand because that's just the nature of, two arms. So if this was a punch, they're trying to come in and get the body shot here, which is a perfectly legitimate concept, especially if they're trained. The second punch is going to come to the face. And so that means I'm here and I'm dropping to protect my floating ribs here. And then the second punch is going to come to the face. This hand has to be ready. So it's teaching you to draw your hands together so you're ready. From a Qigong standpoint, this is expansion, of course. And then expansion has to be followed by, which is yang, this is maximum of yang, has to be followed by a transition to yin so that it can rebalance. And that's what this is. It's to come back together in the center. Okay, so I'm here. And I block with my right first. And then my left hand's going to block the strike. But as I do that, my right foot's going to push to my left. And I'm going to turn to face the new direction as I block with my left. Okay, so if I'm doing this way, there's the first block. I've just brought my weight back to my right. My left hand's in position. Then I bring my weight back to my left, but I turn to the new direction and protect my head here with my left. And then we get to a very important positioning this way, which I always explain as quadrants. Upper right quadrant, upper left quadrant, lower right, lower left. And what you're doing is bringing the right hand to the lower left and the left hand to the upper right. And you've got that dynamic of diagonal across this way. Okay? So back to here. Drop the right hand, protect the lower sort of floating rib area. Bring your weight to the left foot and protect your head with your left hand. And then you got the quadrants in that sense. There. And you're facing the direction towards the right at that point. Okay? We do. So that's the first half of it. The rest of it you have seen before. I want to point that out before we continue. You know this position from the second set. When you do repulsing the monkey and you turn and you go like this, that's that position we were just doing. Quadrants. And then the next thing that happens is you do the spear position, right? So that is what the form's going to get you to do. So when I'm here now, from the third set stuff, it's block here, now I'm in that position again, and then I reach forward with my right foot and right hand and extend into spear position. Okay? So, going back to the martial application, I often teach this also as a kick. Kicks. If somebody's going to kick you, it's very unlikely they're going to try and kick your head. The kicks are going to come into at least below the belly, the solar plexus and down, usually even lower, but they can try to kick you here if they know what they're doing. And this is a good way to block a kick here. And again, though, if I kick, the punch comes right afterwards. So I block the kick, and I block the punch, and now I turn to face the person. And what we're going to do now is we're going to spear them right here. So we've learned from the beginning of the form that there's a pressure point underneath the lower third of the collarbones here. So there, and that one has an effect of dropping a person. But if you go to the center along that line, right at the top of the sternum where the sternum ends and then the throat sort of begins, it's hollow. And it doesn't take much pressure. You can kind of push in there and it's like, oh, I don't like the feeling of that. So this is where we're aiming the spearhead. We're aiming the middle finger right into this point. And unlike the beginning of the form, when you do this one, the person will drop, as I said. This one, the person will go back like this. Okay, so that's what we want to do is drive them back through that point here, okay? So I'm here. I drop, I protect myself from a low punch or a kick. I protect myself from another punch, and then I drive forward into what would be Ren 20. Don't quote me on that. I think it's Ren 20. There. Okay? So now, this whole section of the form now is really going to emphasize this positioning and that dynamic. So you can see that what I'm doing is expanding my arms roughly 45 degrees up and 45 degrees down. And you want to think of them as one thing. This is my spear. And so I'm spearing. If it was longer, I can hold it there. You can see that dynamic of extension is correct to that, what that weapon would do and be. And don't forget that Tai Chi, Yang style Tai Chi, Yang Wu Chan was famous for his spear techniques. He was famous for how good he was with the spear. So that's a very important position. So how are we doing for time? Okay, one last time and we gotta finish it. So up like this, fall back. This is the third set now. Catch the sparrow by the tail. Push away. Single whip to the corner. Now, kick comes at you, you block it. Punch comes at your face, you block it. And then you drive the person away here. Okay, so that's what we've done today. Practice, practice, practice. Thank you for your time. That's good for me. I think that's good. Okay.